For me, and I think for others like me, I had light bulb moments in my life, meaning that I woke up one day and I said, there are no Asians of any, maybe for you it's become very obvious and very, it's not a light bulb moment because there's been more discussion. I've had light bulb moments, but recently we did experience something that really galvanized the community. I don't think those of us who've been around have seen anything quite like it. And I want Arthur to talk about that. It is obviously the Oscar thing. Why that, and what did you do in that moment, which I consider to be a defining moment in the history of Asian Americans in this country, really. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience there?
Well, I've been watching the Oscars for over 60 years, right? And it's always been the thing to watch every year. That's what I always look forward to as a kid. Developing into working in the profession is still something I always look forward to. And I've nurtured my child, my 11-year-old boy, to watch it with me every year as well. And this particular year was really exciting because of the whole issue of diversity. And he's a boy. So when the three kids came out, the three kids as accountants came out, he didn't quite get it. And I said, oh good, I didn't really want to take time out from the Oscars to have a teaching moment. But then Sacha Baron Cohen came out as Ali G and used our surname in this joke. And my son's going through puberty. And I thought, oh dear, I have to really stop, put the remote on mute because we really have to talk about this. Luckily though, it just went over his head. And it didn't register at all. But it never left what I was going through, which was really humiliation and shame. But more than that, a couple of days later, Frida and I were just talking on the phone about, I forget what we were talking about. And I said, well, Frida, so what do you think about that show? And we both just couldn't stop talking. She goes, well, David and I talked about it, and we're gonna do something, write a letter. I said, yeah, but you know, what got to me was Frida and I both served on the board of governors of the Academy. I said, Frida, this is our organization. We know how that board of governors, how they control and everything. And everything that comes out of those board meetings and the Academy office on Wilshire is controlled. So how did this get out? I said, what I really want to know is what happened with our leadership. Who said it was okay? I'm sure someone has to be in control of that moment, and we wanted to find out. I said, you know, more than a letter, what I really was hoping would happen was a letter to our organization, because we're members, and we have a right to know. And that's where David, Frida, and I got together and talked about this. Frida wrote the first draft, and then we found, and the hardest part, and this is a revelation, the hardest part was to find and identify other Asian American members at the Academy. Because in the Academy, we work as branches within our certain crafts. So that's how we work within the organization. So we documentarians we knew all the documentarians, actors knew the actors, and so on. So the hardest part was to identify people that would sign with us on the letter. And we got a hold of Janet. And lo and behold, she was writing letters, and she was just about to send her letters out, and it just kind of had a domino effect. But, and for the first time, I think in Academy history, Asian or members of Asian descent got together and tried to identify each other as a group. And had this, it took us a few days to really have this cross-pollination between all sorts of people, and in the end we found about 54 members that we were able to contact, and 25 of them signed on. And since then, Janet has been, and other members have been really adamant about finding other members. What's the number now, 140-ish?
115, I think.
115?
We're at 115, 20. that we can identify. There's probably others, 115, 20 members, which it makes up 1.5% of the Academy approximately. But it's a start. It's still more than I thought. Because
Yeah.
when I went to Academy events, I didn't see many Asians in general. So
And-
we are still, a group.
And as David was mentioning, we had a pretty healthy discussion of should we go public with this? David's the publicist, of course, it should go public. But I think the thought was, well, this was a letter where we wanted to approach our leadership at the Academy as colleagues. I mean, and I think I really have to hand it to Frida. She really shaped the letter in a way that was very collegial, as opposed to as an attack. It was a request for communication, a request for cooperation, but with very strong points, asking exactly, well, what did happen? How did this come down? Was anybody aware of this? And those were the requests in the letter, as well as what concrete steps would the Academy take to prevent this from happening again. So the letter was sent out just to the Academy and the Board of Governors and to the producers of the show. And it was timed so that it was sent in time for the board meeting that following Tuesday. It was sent on a Wednesday. We understand it was disseminated to all the Board of Governors members on Friday, and the Board of Governors meeting was on the following Tuesday. Well, that Tuesday morning, we're not sure how exactly, well, at least I'm not sure, but the Variety picked up the letters somewhere and wrote a story about it, and as you know, it just took off and went viral. And it went viral for a few days, and then, no, I think on that same day, an apology came from the Academy, which there are copies outside. And depending on your point of view, some press members and community members thought the apology was very weak. It was something that was very formal and pulled out of some corporate file. But some press and some community members thought it was, oh, you got something, you got the apology. But because there was so much attention on the apology, we had a second wave of press, and the Academy in their apology letter didn't ask us to come in for a meeting, but within 24 hours we got the request to come in for a meeting, which we can talk about later.
David put together all the press that came together literally in just those few days, pages and pages of mentions. It was a surprise. It was almost, I don't think that the Asian American community had ever garnered so much attention before around an issue, especially from the mainstream press, especially from a lot of non-Asians. So then we felt like, okay, there's something going on here. We should take it to the next step.